Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for coming back to the Chaos Corner with me, Constance Monet. This is my second part um, to my Disney rant I had earlier. Okay, I told you guys I was coming back in. The rain did not stop. It is still pouring. So, listen, I can't get my natural light on right now. You know, I'm still letting my skin heal from when I used the glue. So, we're going to work with this, okay? Thank you guys for FaceTiming with me. Let's get into my chaos, okay? I told y'all earlier, Disney sends me on a rant. I like Disney. I mean, I'm not supporting it because they got rid of their DEI initiative. But, I grew up on it. I have kids who are growing up with it. I do still have hard DVDs of Finding Nemo, Princess and the Frog. I have Cinderella, original Cinderella, and I have a few more. More Pixar, Toy Story, Cars, that kind of stuff than actual original Disney, right? But let me get into this. Let me get into this chaos, okay? I don't care how you feel about this. If you want to argue, go play in the street, because it's going to be safer than trying to argue with me about my feelings about who the actual Disney movie villains are, okay? And I ranked them. My notes. You see, scratches, numbers. All of the movies are here. So it's a total of, I think, 14 movies with princesses, but I believe it's 13 princesses. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check to make sure. But I believe it's about, it gotta be 14. But I think I used one that's not actually a princess because The Hunchback of Notre Dame is not considered a Disney princess movie. It is a Disney movie because, what's my girl name in there? I can't think of Esmeralda. Esmeralda's not a princess, okay? But Disney originals, they on this list, okay? So like I said, you will do better playing in the street in the middle of traffic than arguing with me. But y'all can disagree in the comments. Y'all can do whatever y'all want to in the comments, but I'm not gonna argue with you, okay? My thoughts, my chaos, I just want to share. Are y'all ready? Okay? Number one on the list. Number one. Actually, I'm not even gonna go number one. I'm gonna start at number 14. I'm gonna start at number 14 because if I do number one, y'all gonna argue faster, and I want you to listen, okay? Let's start at number 14. So number 14 is, I'm gonna go Raya and Moana are together. In number 14, they are not the villains. These two princess movies, they have a villain to vindication story. Something happened. So in Raya, the villain is her father at the beginning because he has the most power, and all of the other tribes thinks that he did it. It's his fault. It was because of him. Father was vindicated because eventually Raya realizes that the dragons were the villains and that the dragons did everything that created all of what they were in. And the people of the land just pushed forward that narrative. Most people look at Raya and think the little girl who tricked her is the villain, but she's not. She's a child. These are children who are just following the orders and the teachings of their parents. And their parents hurt. Be clear. But none of them actually started this. They were just born into this world after the dragons had wreaked all of their havoc on the world. They were born into this world where they had to fight a demon. And anytime we have to fight something that is outside of this world, right? Anytime it's a spirit or alien or dragons, whatever it is, right? Something that is not human, the humans become, in context, the villains. But in this story, really, The humans are vindicated. And also the dragons are vindicated because the damage that they do, they end up having to come back to fix. One dragon fixes all of his siblings' problems that they started. Kind of the same thing in Moana, because in Moana, the villain is Maui and the villain is Taka. These two are the villains of Moana. First, everyone thinks it's Moana because she's the hard-headed princess who wants to go into this ocean that sucks life out, that's having the life sucked out of it. But the reason this is happening is because of Maui. Problem is, Maui was just a demigod that was trying, because he was not accepted and he wasn't wanted, he was trying to appease the humans, and in doing these things, really committed a crime against nature by stealing the heart, Taka's heart. Taka becomes the villain because once her beautifulness, her heart, the heart of her beauty is taken by Maui, little thieving, scheming self, right? She becomes this eruptive volcano that is sucking the life out of everything, trying to find her heart again, because that's the point. She just wants her heart back so she can go back to being this beautiful island that continues to feed the world, because Taka is a god. Taka is pretty much, it looks like the god of life and lavish life. I don't know. I'm not arguing with y'all. I didn't do a deep dive of research on Taka, okay? I know that in the space in the Polynesian space, excuse me, that there's this story is something that has truth and embellishment on it, just like a lot of our tales from the past, right? So I know that there's a reason and a presence for this, but based on the movies, this is what this was about, okay? In reality, these villains are created and then vindicated by the end of the movie. And I haven't seen the second one, so I have no idea, but in these first two, they are number 14. They really don't carry a true villain that can be vindicated, okay? We're going to go to number 13. Number 13 is Brave, Merida. Merida is the true villain in Brave. I know we think that it's Mordu. Mordu was the prince who was such a bad prince that he was turned into the bear by magic, and he is that beast bear that all of the tribes are chasing because he's the one that Merida's father gets into a fight with, and he gets that cut over his eye, right? But Merida is the villain because even though she's the coming of age 16-year-old context, I'm saying about 16, I believe she's 15 or 16. You can go online and find out. Most of these princesses are between the ages of 12 and 16. Most of them are not adults. They are not even 17 or 18. They are not legal adults at 18. These are children, right? But she's at that coming of age because they're trying to get her married. The reason I think she's the villain in this movie is that because she disagreed and was babied by her father, she literally poisoned her mother, who hadn't done anything to her except for try to teach her the ways of survival and the ways of being a queen and becoming a queen and kind of the rules around it. She poisons her mom and her brothers. The little brother's on accident, but just think, if that poison would have killed her mom, the brothers would have been dead too. She poisons her. And then she goes on a full-out chase to have to save her. Does she save her mom? Yeah, whoop-de-doo. But her mom almost dies fighting Mordu, trying to save all of the people, in which her mom was trying to do in the beginning. She was trying to save her daughter, teach her daughter the ways, but her dad was standing in the way. Oh, let her do whatever she wants. Let her be this way. But people don't realize that low-key her dad's a secondary villain because he didn't teach her the ways of a woman because he couldn't. He just stood in the mom's way and said, oh no, let her, until it was time to get married. Then it's force her into this dress and let her give up that vajay because we got to move forward, and she's the property. She's this thing that's a hot commodity. And her mom had been trying to teach her to understand, hey, this is going to happen. This is going to come. And as soon as those two things clashed, her being babied by her father and her mom trying to teach her what it takes to be a woman in this world, she poisoned her mom. Okay? Like I said, yes, Mardu has his own story, but in Brave, Mardu is I think, overall bad guy, but the villain is Merida. Okay? Number 12. All right? I'm going to say that Anna and Elsa, we're going to go, we're going Anna and Elsa. They at number 13, because they're pretty low on my total. I'm sorry. Number 12. They're number 12. Anna and Elsa's parents are the bad guys. Are the villains. Anna and Elsa's parents. Okay? Now, the bad guys, I'm going to give you why, but the bad guys in this is Prince Hans. But he's a bad guy in context to anytime you get caught slipping, the person who catches you slipping, he the bad guy. The problem is that boy had, 7 to 12 siblings. He was never going to become a king. He knew he was in a long line. He was trying to find any girl who was a princess who needed to get married. And I think that was about his 13th island he had been to. He was going to all the coronations, okay? That's why he was a bad guy. Overall, he would have did anything to get to his thing. But he's just a bad guy because he was easily defeated because he didn't have a lot of stance in life. The Duke of Weaselton, that's what I'm gonna call it, but I think it's Wesselton. He was a lifelong bad guy. He came there trying to find out so that he could exploit the resources, okay? And then just their manipulation and ego is the reason that made those two the bad guys. They thought that they could manipulate these women because they did not know who the princesses were, because they had been hidden on this island for all of their childhood. So nobody had access to manipulate, to change their thought process, to, push their ideas on them. And they needed to get in as soon as they could. But the villains were the parents, because their parents were the reason that the girls didn't have a relationship. Not because of the kids, not because of her powers, but because instead of them teaching them that this was it, especially the mom, because she knew where the girls' powers came from because it was her fault. Because when you watch both movies, you find out that mom and dad meet as children, and mom is the spiritual, she's a spiritualist, and dad is a prince, and she saves the dad. That's how they knew to take Anna to the rocks, the healing rocks, whenever she got hit with the ice by Elsa in the first place. Okay? Villains together, both of them, because they could have just taught their children, but what they did was they locked their daughter up and told her, you're gonna harm your baby sister, you can't play with her. And then for years, one sister's thinking, I don't want to hurt her, I have to stay locked in here. Even after the parents died, it's already locked in, the idea. The other sister's thinking, she doesn't like me, my big sister hates me, and I don't know why, because her memory is wiped from what happened to her when she got hurt by Elsa's powers, and the parents just separate them and lock the baby in a room where she stays locked up until she becomes the queen. She stays locked in that room until she becomes the queen. Her sister's outside the door crying for her, but it's already set in because the parents have already done the damage. Because they didn't explain to Anna what happened. And then they run off into the wind on a boat and they die. And these girls have nothing else. They just die. Now it's sad that they died, but they are the villains. Okay, we're going to go to number 11. We know in Mulan, the real villain is Shan Yu, okay? Shan Yu is the villain. He's the Shun Yu is the villain. He's wreaking havoc over the land, and he's the true villain. Like this, that's why they number 11. Mulan is way down here because it's not a big guess. The bad guy to me though is Mushu. Mushu was willing to do anything, anything under the sun to be an ancestor and get him a statue up there on the ledge, okay? He was lying, cheating, stealing. He hadn't been doing his job for thousands of years. And then when it came time for him to go up there and he didn't make it, he was like, I'll do anything. And he was tricking her. He was lying. Whole movie, okay? He the bad guy. He's the person you wouldn't think of. Number 10 is, it's my favorite movie, Princess and the Frog, okay? But we know that the bad guy is Dr. Facilier because he uses his magic for black magic. Everybody sees him as the true villain, but he's not. He's the bad guy because he's a trickster. He's the trickster of lights and fairy tale, and he uses the other side, but he's been doing that. He's doing it for money. He has his one clause. He doesn't care about hurting people so much, but at the same time, it's always with a purpose. And the fact that he uses his magic makes people automatically associate because, you know, everyone pushes this Christian agenda. And so whenever you bring in magic, it's like, no, that's the villain. Really, he's just a bad guy. He was standing on corners just tricking people and selling snake oil. Okay? That's not villain activity. The real villain is Lawrence. Okay? Lawrence he's the side guy. He's the one who never had love and the one who's never going to be a prince. And he sold out his boss, you know, to Dr. Facilier to try to take over his life. That is a villain. He had a lifelong plan. He would have killed him if he could have before then. He hated working for him. He was like, you have everything and I hate this, and that's villain. That's villain era because you take the time to create this horrible feeling on the inside and then you run with it. He was the true villain, okay? Number 9 is, so number 9, Mother Gothel is the bad guy to me, even though she kidnapped the child, right? She didn't hurt the baby. She raised the child. Yes, she locked her in a castle. But if we look back, then everybody's parents who locked their children in castles, which would be, I think, 6 princesses, all their parents would be like villains. Mother Gothel's the bad guy. The villain, I'll say, it was like a villain vindication in that movie as well, in Tangled, because Mother Gothel could have killed the baby and just used her blood like people used to do during slavery if you want to be a villain. But she kept the child. She did give her Stockholm syndrome. She did, yes. But she's more of a bad guy to me and not so much a villain. In that movie, I don't really see a villain because the 2 bad guys were just bad guys. The ones who worked with, I can't remember the guy's name, Flint. Flint wasn't a bad guy. He was just a poor kid who hustled his way through the world. So I didn't think that they had a real villain, but I didn't think that Mother Gothel was the actual villain either. I think that she was just a bad guy, okay? My number 8 is The Lion King, okay? Just stick with me here, okay, y'all? Scar, of course, we know, is the villain of it. Because he set up his nephew to kill his brother, something that he couldn't do without a child. Then after he killed him, he ate him. If you guys don't know, lions are one of the few animals who they only eat themselves. If a lion dies in the wild and you see bones and you don't see the skin that is dried around it and it just died and stayed there, other lions ate it because other animals don't eat lions. Lions eat lions after they're dead, okay? Period. Just do you go watch some Discovery Channel, okay? So that skull that he has in his hand when I can't remember the bird's name right now, but when he comes and he tells him that he needs to come down because something bad has happened and all of that, and when he takes over, he's playing with the skull's head. That's Mufasa's head because he eats other lions. Okay? The hyenas, we know they're the bad guys. That's why they're way down here too. And number 7, my favorite movie from childhood, which was Aladdin. And the princess gets pushed to the side for the poor child who's a boy on the street. But I digress. Everyone says that the villain is Jafar. But Jafar and Aladdin were exactly the same two type of people. They were poor kids who were using the tricks that they learned over time to get where they wanted to be. Jafar became the right hand and the sorcerer to the king because he had all these tricks in his bag. He could take things, he could sneak around, he was listening, he was always trying to just move up, okay? So I think he was a bad guy. The villain though is Iago, that bird. Iago was a bad guy even in the second movie when he got with the good guys. He was still a bad guy. Like, he's the villain. He's the true villain. Like, Iago was in Jafar's, like, you punk, you can't do it. What are you doing? That's why he would just smack him up against the wall. He was like the devil on anyone's shoulder trying to create havoc, okay? Number 6 is Lady Tremaine from Cinderella. Lady Tremaine, we know she's the villain. And her daughters were the bad guys. I don't have to elaborate on that. They show it in the movie. She's a terrible person to that little girl that she didn't want, but she needed her so that she can keep her ex-husband's belongings, pretty much, and his money. So she just couldn't get rid of her. So she just abused her, you know. That's it. That's all with that. Number 5 is, I believe it is the evil queen. Yes, is Snow White. And the villain in Evil Queen, of course, I mean, the villain is the evil queen, excuse me, because she wanted she wanted to have omnipotent, I think I'm saying that right now. My words are crumbling. But she wanted exclusive power. That was it. She didn't care about anything. That's why she stole the mirror, so that she could find out who the most beautiful was, because that was the person who was going to have the actual power, right? It didn't take money. Snow White was in general, she was a good girl. So she had the beauty on the inside and the outside, which was the problem. The evil queen didn't. She was nasty on the inside. That's why she looked bad on the outside, okay? We all know that. Villain. Number 4 is Beauty. The movie is Beauty and the Beast. Everybody thinks that Beast is the villain who is transcended. But Beast was a kid with too much money and dead parents. And that's how children act. Crazy, okay? Beast to me was in context the bad guy, because he kidnapped an old man. He left him, he almost had him eaten by wolves. He kidnapped a girl. Just because she fell in love with him, he locked her in the jail. The other entities of the house, they let her out. They fed her food, but he was yelling and cussing about her, okay? But the villain, we know, is Gaston. Gaston was a bad guy from the top of bad guy. He didn't want that girl at all. He just wanted her because she was the chase. And he was willing to do anything. Put her daddy in a crazy house. Leave her to be eaten alive. He did not care to get to this one woman who didn't want him. Who said over and over, he really is a predator. That's what makes him the villain. He is a true predator. Period. Number 3, I think that there are double bad guys in this. Now, Ursula is the villain in Little Mermaid, but Ursula was crossed, and she says this, what my brother did to me. She says a lot, this is my brother's fault, and da-da-da-da-da, right? I think both her, Ursula, and King Trident, her brother, are both the bad guys in this movie. Because I think if he would have given Ariel more to work with about life and to see what she perspected instead of just doing what most parents do, which is hoarding important information for children that they need to know. Just because it hurts doesn't mean they don't need to know it, because then they stand against you. Then they decide to say, I'll give up my actual legacy for this stupidity, right? To go be a replaceable queen, things like that. I think they both were bad guys. There wasn't like a real villain in the movie, because this was all about family and love and the lack of information being shared, because Ursula was hurt, but she doesn't talk a lot about why she was hurt. Trident just doesn't talk about anything. He just rules the sea and has his daughters, and that's it. And because of that, Ariel's the nosy baby who has nothing else to do except go against the grain and not care. But also, she didn't see her mother die because she was a baby, and the older sisters know, but everybody's keeping these secrets. So I think they're both just bad guys in here, and it's not like a true defined villain of the story. Also, I didn't watch 2 and 3, I believe. I don't care. I didn't care enough. That was well past my childhood. Okay. Number 2. We almost to the end of this, guys. We almost to the end of this. And I know everybody's blood pressure is up, because some of these is your favorite people. Some of these are your favorite movies. But that's your business, not mine. I'm sharing my thoughts, my chaos, okay? Number 2. Get into the nitty gritty, okay? My number 2 top villain is Maleficent. And I know she's made to be the villain in the story, but that is not why she's the villain, top number 2 villain to me. The bad guy in that movie is King Stephen, because he is the reason she's a villain. So the backstory, not just the live action movies, but in the original movie, the backstory is King Stephen, when he was a prince, a young boy, he liked to be in the forest. He wanted to kick it with the wild stuff. He runs into Maleficent, who is a wild, witchy type presence, and a girl. They are friends, but she does not fit into what he needs to become a king. So he throws her to the side, and then he runs off with the perfect little princess, and they get married, and then they have a baby. And Maleficent comes back to pay it forward because it hurt her feelings, period, okay? King Stephen's the bad guy. But Maleficent, to me, is the villain, the true villain of this story, because her heart was broken as a child. As a child, her heart was broken by one man. And she cursed a baby who had nothing to do with it. Kidnapped the baby, okay? In context, kidnaps, because she watches that child and makes sure the child never comes into any type of presence. Also, the fairies help with that. Of course, they're protecting her. But she makes sure that bad stuff is coming at her in this enclosed environment over time. And of course, in the live action movies, we see that she kind of falls in love with her and wants to protect her. But she cursed a baby about a man that didn't want her when she was a child. You know how broken you are on the inside? That wasn't her daddy. It's one thing to have daddy issues. But this idea that Disney pushes, that a man's supposed to come and save you, she is the pure villain in that. When that man didn't save her and didn't stand up, she showed up 15 years, 20 years later when he had a baby and was like, no, your daughter would never have happiness and da-da-da-da-da, and she's going to prick her finger and she's going to go into a coma until the man that loves her, her true love's kiss comes. She also put her in a very unsafe environment to be assaulted by a random human being just so she could come out her coma. That's too far for me. That's too far. I leave the old people and the children out of it when I'm beefing with you. Now, if they come into it, they make themselves a part of it. Old people for sure. Children, I'll just kick them to the side because they're children. You can't tell me. You a teenager, you start out the side of your neck, that's different. But to deep dive and be so bitter for so long that you would attack a baby, an infant that was just born, in real life, she'd have killed that baby if she had the option. But it would have made her look extra bad, and Disney only creates a little bit of havoc, right? We don't kill babies in Disney. So she curses her and poisons her. It's the worst thing I ever experienced. Like, that to me is just too far. But that's like a lot of women that I see who in real life get with somebody who has a child, get with a man who has kids he don't take care of, and then condemns those children. Won't feed the children when they come over because that ain't my child. I don't have to. But you got 3 kids, and one of them is by that same man, and that's how you would treat the child. That's how you would treat this outside child. Like, you can't never become the outside woman, and that child can't become the secondary outside child. Same thing. Same thing. Nothing's any different to me. Just like this post I saw about this woman who, she was the new wife to this man, and he obviously had a good co-parenting relationship with his ex, and he called for the child, and they took family pictures for the holidays, and they did matching everything, but that child was in old clothes. Both of them are bad in that position, but it's the context. It's the woman process. It's the maleficent spirit on her that you would harm a child because you don't like that this other woman exists forever and this child came from something else. Like, you cannot get divorced and you cannot end up being the additional other child because you got a child with this man too. Same thing. It's the weirdest thing to me. It is disgusting on my insides. I don't know how people live with themselves, but they really do validate this. And Maleficent validated that. And I feel like some of them, these grown women, learned it from watching that. Okay? And now we to the end of all my crazy. My number 1 villain in all of Disney is Pocahontas. Period, point blank. She is a traitor to her race. She is a traitor to all things good. She literally sold out everything she loved to go and be a part of something she decided was better. She let everybody die. She let the whole land be pillaged and plundered, went off with this random white people, and it's not about them being white. That's just who was in the movie, okay? Ran off with them, went to England, continues her life. I believe there's a Pocahontas too, but I know the history of it. She actually gets married to a different man named John Smith over there, comes back with them, and helps them to pillage and plunder more. She doesn't save any of the Indians. She does not help with any of the indigenous people. And she dies over there in England from bacteria infections. That's what she dies from, because they weren't as clean as her tribe had taught her. And that's what she gave up everybody she loved and was bred from, and her whole entire legacy for. She's the top number 1 villain. Argue with your mama. Okay. The bad guy, of course, we know is Governor Radcliffe. But he was doing his thing. He was just a bad guy. He was doing what he came there to do. He was a man on a mission. But Pocahontas, she even destroyed her best friend, the mother willow tree, because she destroyed all of the land and the nature. She helped them to destroy all of her family. And when it didn't look the way she wanted in the Disney movie, she's crying. But in reality, they took over, pillage and plunder. Now we have Thanksgiving. She went over there and died from infections. She just wiped out everybody to fall in love with a random ass man that she just met. Nobody beats her out. To me, nobody beats her out in Disney. Nobody is a worse villain than her, not even Scar. And I know a lot of y'all are going to say, well, Scar killed his brother. No. Nope. He killed one family member. She killed all of her family members. She killed all of her friends. She killed all of her cousins, okay? She killed the man she loved. She killed nature, okay? And then she died on another foreign land from infections, okay? top notch. Nobody beats her out. That's just where it is for me. I appreciate y'all listening to my Disney crazy. Thank y'all for coming and hearing my crazy chaos today. Everybody, I appreciate y'all for showing up for this FaceTime. I will FaceTime y'all again soon. Y'all have a wonderful day. Remember, gem of the day, use your critical thinking skills. Even when it comes to Disney, use your critical thinking skills. Make good decisions for you, about you, that benefit the things that you need. Okay? I'll leave y'all with that. Thank y'all so much for showing up today. And I'll see you guys again soon for another FaceTime.